Good. Good morning. Sorry we're running late from our last meeting.
It's my fault.
I was about to say it was Wayne's fault, so thank you for telling us that. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:39 a.m. I'd ask that you please, as a courtesy to all, ensure that you silence your cell phones. Each director has received notice of this committee meeting. The public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law. Director Savage indicated that he would not be present for this meeting. At this point in the meeting, we have set time aside to hear from you, the general public. Those of you that were interested in providing comments and filled out one of the cards available at the reception's desk will be called to make your comments at this time. We have no public comments today, and we'd like to move forward with the agenda. So our first agenda item is discussion and possible action on Possum Kingdom Airport, presented by Randall McCartney, Regional Lake Operations Manager.
We on? Yeah, I guess we are, aren't we? Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, committee, and welcome. We have talked to you in the past about a piece of property at Possum Kingdom that we own, and it is an airport. It's been an airport for a very long time. It serves an important purpose locally. It allows us to have some benefits when it comes to the potential of emergency management. It allows us to help support a quality of life around the reservoir. And I think we're going to show you a plan this morning that allows us to make a little bit more revenue off of it and continue operations of the airport. Early on, when we started this conversation, we were looking at the potential of getting out of the airport business. We had hoped that it was something that we could hand off to Palo Pinto County. After our negotiations reached a stalemate, we started looking at the potential of a private governmental partnership, and we weren't able to make that work either. And out of that, we just put together a plan that we think allows us, again, to make a little revenue, be a good neighbor, and keep the airport and open, and keep the property in our name, and look at opportunities to make sure that the airport's operating efficiently and doing what it needs to do. So we're going to turn it over to Randall McCartney. You know Randall, some of you do from his past days as the reservoir manager up at Possum Kingdom. With the reorg, he took a role in helping have oversight of both Possum Kingdom and Granbury as a resource. And he's an outstanding leader of those reservoirs and really well-versed in the airport and what we do. So I'm going to let him walk you through some slides, and then we can talk about it. Randall?
Thank you, David. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
As Mr. Collinsworth just mentioned, we are committed to trying to keep this airport operational. I'm going to cover some of the reasons why we think that we should still keep this operational, some of the upgrades that will be needed along the way, and then with the new rates that we'll be proposing today and the new lease terms as well. Some of the repairs I'll get into here in a few slides down the way. But the increased lease rates, along with TxDOT grants that we're going to be reaching out to look at and try to obtain, those are going to help keep the airport operational, and they're going to help sustain it and allow it to be self-sustaining. The new lease forms, as David mentioned, being good neighbors, good stewards to folks around us and people that utilize the airport. It's going to show our commitment to them. It's going to show our commitment to the hangar lessees as well, so that if they need to go out and get any kind of potential financial backing from an institution to make repairs to their hangars, they can do that. And we'll get into how those longer terms will affect them. For those of you that may not be familiar with the airport, this particular location was completed in 1981. The runway is is 3,500 feet long and 60 feet wide. We have 11 lessees that obtain or occupy the 19 hangars that are on site. And we have 16 aircraft tie-down area. That's, let's see here with pointer. Right here, it's not showing on there. nevertheless, this area here is the tie-down area, and then the area right behind that is the parking spot. We have 35 vehicles that we have authorized to park in that general area. And then the little bitty tan building that's right over off, just to the south, if you will, of that parking area is the Pilot's Lounge. There in the Pilot's Lounge, we do have 2 restroom facilities along with a little common area that the pilots and or folks can wait while they're waiting on different flights or waiting to be picked up. Again, these are going to be some of the repairs that we're looking at. So to get you kind of caught up to speed as to how these repairs came about, there was a meeting held with local PK staff and TxDOT folks on site at the PK airport. At that point in time, it was presented to the TxDOT officials. Give us the recommendations that you all would see us needing to make to allow the airport to be sustainable in the future years. These are what they had come up with for that. These repairs and upgrades will take place again over the next several years once the grants are obtained. So depending upon when those grants are obtained will depend upon how long it will take to make the repairs necessary. Again, something as simple as upgrading the electrical. If we change one bulb on the electricity or any of the electrical signs or lighting out there to LED to get those more modernized, we'll have to do every single light out there so the systems will react together. The lease rates, currently those repairs that you just saw, that's the approximate cost, and this meeting was held back in late spring of this year. So those numbers are fairly accurate as to what we depict to being the amount to make those necessary repairs. And then with a grant, TxDOT Aviation will cover 90%. The BRA will be on the hook for the 10%. That's why we have the $140K right there approximate. And then with the new lease rates that David had mentioned earlier, we've looked at going up. And so the average annual rate of those hangar lessees, their average annual rate will be $2,400, and that'll equate to 72 cents per square foot. Lease terms and provisions. So under the new lease agreement and rescinding the 2008 lease moratorium strictly for the PK Airport property only, the leases now will be extended for a longer period of time. Currently, they're on a year-to-year basis. We do have a few that are out there that are remaining from an old previous initial lease. And so we've got 3 of them, I believe, from 25 to 27 that will still be on their old lease. However, the rest of the lessees are currently on year-to-year leases. And so by doing that, again, that'll show our commitment to the lessees that we're extending their terms of their leases. They have the ability to stay longer, and then they have the ability, if they need financial backing from a financial institution, that institution is more likely to give them additional funds for their repairs for their hangars. And I'll open it for questions, and if not, I have a resolution to read for y'all. Yes, sir.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, what's the current lease rate that they're paying?
So the current lease rate right now, it's going to increase approximately 4%. So the current annual is about 16 cents a square foot. So we're increasing that pretty drastically to make sure that we are operation and that airport is going to be self-sustaining with those rates. And again, subject to y'all's approval as well. I mean, you guys can increase those rates later down the road if we need to, if we start realizing that the costs are not where they need to be so that we're self-sustaining. We could bring that back to y'all to increase those rates as well at that time.
Have the people with hangar leases been involved in any of these discussions?
Yes, sir.
So they
We actually had a
realize-
meeting with them on the 11th at PK, and all of them were very open and optimistic to the meeting that we had with them, explaining pretty much the same presentation when it comes to the numbers and the terms of agreement that we're trying to go out for to make them feel comfortable as well, that they can make necessary repairs to their hangars.
Do we sell fuel at the airport?
No, sir, not currently, but that is something that we've looked into in the future. We're just wanting to make sure that we can get the airport self-sustaining at this time, and if that's the case, then we'll move forward with that as a new option for the future.
I would sure recommend looking into that because there's a lot of revenue to be made with self-service fuel.
That's,
there.
we've looked into that, and again, we're just trying to put together a plan that's self-supportive with no improvements other than what TxDOT says in their review of the airport, and then maybe in year 2, come back with fuel, and then also look at rental tie downs and plane covers where you come in, swipe your credit card, park your plane, and you're paying to store it under, things like that.
And that 90% grant from TxDOT Aviation is a great deal. I mean,
Yes,
that's
sir.
just money, free money.
And I hate to correct the presenter, but I think he said we're going up on the rates 4%, but I think it's more like 400%.
Sounds like
Correct,
it,
sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I realize that. Thank you.
Director Bourne.
Big difference.
First of all, David, I'm real happy you're doing this because when I first saw it on the agenda, I thought, oh, they're going to kill it. It's just the end of it. Because I knew you were trying to keep focus on the primary objective of VRA. And I'm glad to see us doing this. I know I hear a lot about this from Lubbock pilots, and they say they land in Graham or Breckenridge. They hate this airstrip. And so when this came out, I started doing some little basic, because I'm not a pilot. I don't know anything about other than just getting on it and flying. But I set my model at Horseshoe Bay. I thought, that's a good model. The runway here is 3,500 feet, Horseshoe Bay, 6,000. And they have 19 hangars. Well, no, you have 19 hangars currently, and they made a jet center. And I think the property values and the value of PK warrants this move that you're taking. And I realize you have to take little steps sometimes, but I'd ask you consider making it a project that worthy of more than just this, and maybe even look at FFA for funding. I've been told by many pilots FAA will fund a lot of these repairs on especially runways to lengthen it or do what you need to do. And I would assume you probably did look at FAA. Is that correct, David? Do you think?
Well, so the understanding that I have is we're looking at TxDOT, but the TxDOT funds come from the FAA. Director Lattimore,
Okay.
am I saying that right?
He's not wrong. I listen to him.
Yeah.
So.
So it's one and the same, but again, we would be looking to that grant money to make the majority of these improvements.
Okay.
Lattimore.
I'll preface my remarks to say that I'm a pilot and prejudiced because I use this airport all the time myself. It is the front door for Possum Kingdom, just like the roads and everything else that come in there. And on the weekend, that airport will be heavily used, and it's covered up with airplanes and vehicles. So it's a very popular destination, and it is the front door for Possum Kingdom for the people who fly. But David, there's a question in my mind with these new lease rates, which I understand the hangar owners have agreed to. Does this get the airport on a break-even basis?
Yes, sir. We would not bring a plan to the board that didn't consider a revenue-making opportunity.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's going to get us to a break-even basis. And if I understand the presentation right, Randall, the 10% that the BRA would be looking at having to fund is included in the new lease rates that these
Yes, sir.
hangar owners.
Yes, sir.
So the net effect to the BRA is zero. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
In terms of the profitability, and that's also speculating that we're going to get the grants from TxDOT. If we don't get the grants from TxDOT, then we would have to come to the board and either go up on the rates more, or we would have to put off some of the improvements to the runway, to the airport.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions.
Chairman Flores.
That was my question. If we didn't get it, then we still moving forward with the project. And if we have things that are upgrades to the airport, it probably means that they probably should be done whether we get the money or not. So do we have a plan in place to increase the rates to make that happen?
That's what we would have to bring to the board, project by project, to assess. And then we would have to go in and prioritize what's more important for the safety of the planes flying in and out as far as those improvements are going. But what we want to make sure that we don't do is subsidize the operation of the airport with our system water rates. And that's where Director Lattimore's going. And we're
What's the
very
time
concerned.
What's
So-
the timeframe for submitting an application? Is that a cycle time through the government, or is that an open opportunity
I
to
believe
request
it's
at any time?
I believe
What's
it's an
that
open
step?
opportunity. From our perspective, it is getting the board to give us the go-ahead to start what we're doing, and that would be to have new lease rates out, have those signed, have those folks committed to paying these costs, so then we could go get the grant money.
Director Abraham.
This is dear to my heart, this airport. That we need to look at Shoreland Regional Airport. When I got elected there, I took that into my heart and made it into a profitable business. Shoreland Municipal Regional Airport is one of the only airport make positive income in United States. I'm talking about municipal airport. We are not competing with the hobby, but we made one of the things Director Rick mentioned, fuel sales. That is one of the things we had to implement. That is one we can make money. I think this one we can make into much profit. Also, we used to go to the tax dot every time, ask money, because there is money there, they can give us, improve our airport. If we can make this airport, our claim was this not just an airport, also an emergency evacuation facility. If some emergency happen, airport is one of the important place for evacuate people, also back and forth. And we made that airport one of the best airport. We had one of the best runway. Even 747 can right now want to land in Shoreland. And we made, when I was leaving 2012 council, we were making almost $1 million profit a year. I mean, you need to check on these things. And we bought a brand new terminal. People don't have to deal with the Houston traffic. Private people and rich, all the plays, all the basketball, football players, they have the flight, they can fly to Sugarland, they have a red carpet service. Take a limo, go to Houston. They don't have to hold with all the traffic. I think we can make this one of the best facilities in this area. So I really want that see.
Director Weldon.
Thank you. I've got several questions. I've never flown an airplane, but I spent a career making sure they had a place to land. So this is also near and dear to my heart, and I am very pleased to see that there's an effort to keep this airfield open. It is a valuable asset for cross-country refueling opportunities, not only just local users of the lake, and the ability to use it for emergency response, a place for those responders or the State Operations Center to use it as an asset is also another element of this to consider. I've also, through the city of Stephenville, dealt with TxDOT aviation and know that it moves at the speed of plate tectonics. And even though you get grants secured, it doesn't necessarily mean that grants are executed in a year that you as the grant awardee are trying to articulate and to your constituents and work into your budget. And so it's a very difficult task. So I appreciate that uncertainty right now about the grant process. And one of my questions was, well, what TxDOT program year might this even be inserted, because they're dealing with aviation assets statewide, and this is a really small airfield, a really small dollar amount. So in one sense, it might be able to get into the program in the next 5 years, but it might not. And so that's something, to your point, how do we fund this thing if we don't get a grant is a very important thing to consider. I also have got to be honest, I don't trust, I need to have my trust increased with this cost estimate. Because if the cost estimate is not based on anything more than walking out with TxDOT, has anyone done a asset, has there been anything done with the electrical system to actually have somebody that knows the system to survey it? Has the pavement been assessed? Is there a pavement survey, condition index that's been done? Has that level of survey been done to establish a cost estimate? Or is this just, hey, it's 3,500 feet, we're gonna do all the parking aprons, all the runway surface, all the paved surface? How was the estimate prepared, and who created it? So let me just stop with that question before I go to the others.
So I'll bring Troy Weatherhead up. He's the reservoir manager currently at PK, and he's the one that met with them on staff. But I will let you know, Director, that we have had multiple grants in the past with TxDOT Aviation, so we do have a good working relationship with them. We've been very successful with those grants that we've obtained in previous years. And so, yes, we do. There was a little bit more, I think, that went into it than the guys just walking that. But again, the length and the term of when we will receive the grants and then we actually get folks out there on the ground to do it, that's a little bit of a fluid, I can't give you a specific time frame in that, but I will say that we could work towards that, and it would be something that I feel like would be done within the next few years for sure. But I'll let Troy kind of go into a little bit more detail if you would like on that.
Good morning, directors. TxDOT Aviation, when they met me, I think it was in April, May of this year, to talk about the airport, I called the actual regional project manager that handles that area of Texas. He came out with an assistant and met me, and they'd spent probably 2 hours at the airport, driving it, walking it, do everything. So they did a 100% full assessment of the tarmac, the runway, the lights, all that. I also got BC Electric. For those you don't know, they're the ones that installed all the lighting when the airport was built. They've done all our electrical maintenance on it since we've had it. They came out and gave me a separate quote for all the lighting to make sure all the numbers would jive. The numbers TxDOT provided at $1.4 million for all these repairs is based on prices that they think will be in 2030. So they're looking out, because they're, as you said earlier, they work at a tectonic plate. They're looking at it. It takes, once we start the process to get the grants, they say it's going to take up to 3 years, and then like you said with all the good directors, it's not guaranteed it's going to be approved. But as far as the numbers, we're pretty confident on the numbers based on who I've had to come out and do everything. And I want everybody to know there's nothing failing on the airport right now. It's got an above average score of the whole 9 yards. We just did the crack repair earlier, or end of last year, and restriped the entire airport. So there's no abnormalities at it right now at all. We just know down the road it's starting to exceed service life on the pavement and the lighting and stuff like that. That's why we got to stay ahead of the game if we want to keep it open as an airport.
So Director Weldon, to further answer your question, I think what we do is we do a project. And if the project cost of that specific project come in higher than these rates support, then we go up on these rates to pay for that project. And we've been very clear with the hangar lessees that this is a rate that we think we can adopt. If the board will adopt this, we'll adequately fund for now, but we were very clear with them about having to increase that rate as inflation happens and if projects cost more than what we anticipated.
Okay, good. That flows right into my second question to deal with the rates, because it appears the rate structure's been based on these estimates versus the going rate for leases at airfields. And so was there a survey done to say what should a pilot pay for a lease at a facility like this versus just how do we break even? Are we leaving money on the table, in other words, that we might recoup for these future costs?
So we've went out and looked at various airports within the general vicinity of ours, as well as the amenities that they provide, trying to find something that's very similar as to where we're offering and or potentially where we would be in the future if we do make additional upgrades. And we've increased those rates based upon those figures that were retained from calling other airports and talking to their airport managers.
Okay, so is the rate based on the survey or based on the performer?
It's based on the performer.
Okay, well, that's not what I'm asking, because I'm going to assume the rates may be, at airports, may be greater than what the performer is saying you need.
I'm assuming they are because most all airports are for profit. So I think this is the low end of where we can start and make profit enough to do what we need to do. But I think we certainly have the flexibility to increase this rate and charge more. It just depends on how profitable a governmental entity wants its airport to be.
Sherwin Flores.
So one,
So-
one last question tied to that. The Performa doesn't show any inflation or increase in the out years. And
So it was based on the fiscal year '26 budget going forward. And we find at the airport, the budget, we typically underspend. So we were trying not to inflate the pro forma so much as to sort of create an inflated profit. But the rates that we chose, you see, they're creating profit in those out years. And so we're trying to find a good balance between what we need to charge to be able to make it profitable and sustainable, and what other airports in the area were charging to come with a good fit that fits the PK airport.
Okay. Well, I just was surprised to see that there wasn't at least a nominal percentage increase of the to account for inflation over the life of the Performa. I think that's something that might need to be considered. And I'll just summarize here with the thought: this is not new. It's a struggle for an entity that's not for profit to contemplate, how do I balance just providing the service versus providing the service well. And it's something that you know, I don't know if we need to go so far, though. I think it's a very interesting point to look at it becoming a regional airport or something more than it is. But I do think that it warrants taking a more for-profit view of this, because inflation is going to be a reality, and pavement that hasn't been touched in 40 years is going to be based on a TxDOT per square yard estimate that's going to be low. And I don't want to say that just to say that their estimate is inaccurate. I'm just saying it's not going to keep pace with inflation. And so I think it's a great initiative, but I think and I guess we got to start somewhere. So the 1.4 million that we're talking about, and rates that are locked in for a 10-year period, to me,
No.
Let me correct, the rates aren't locked in. The rates aren't locked in.
they're a 10-year lease, but they're
They're
not.
10-year lease, but the staff has the flexibility as much as needed to come back to this board and adjust that rate.
Yeah, the lease form that will be created.
Mike, please.
Yeah,
So it will be very similar to our water contracts. The lease form that will be created will have a provision in there that will make it very clear that the board may adjust these rates from time to time as the board sees fit. And that could be annually, that could be every other year, it could be, yes, the board will have the ability. So this rate structure, this rate will go into what we call our fee sheet. Michelle has an agenda item about our fee sheet that she's gonna go through later today about some other fees unassociated with this. But that fee sheet can be adjusted by the board, which will include this rate as the board sees fit.
okay.
Director
All right, thank
Weldon,
you.
and
Rates will be adjusted.
Director Weldon, let me add on, because I appreciate where you're going. The assignment to staff was go look at the improvements, put together pro forma on what it would take to make this in the black every year so that we can, as a water entity, continue to provide this service. I really do agree with Tom, and the reason that we've looked at adding fuel is because I think the fuel and the other things that we're going to bring to the airport in the early years will help us deal with inflationary a little bit, and it will help this become more profitable. And I do think that we will seek other opportunities in the years to come to make this more of a small revenue center. Again, and instead of subsidizing our system rate, we can look at our system rate holders and saying, hey, we're helping buy down the cost of projects by operating this local airport. That's the goal.
And Director Weldon,
Thank you.
School as a tenant over there.
We don't do anything as far as train pilots or have anything to do with pilots,
So what kind
except
of
for
tenant
tell them
do
where
you
to
have?
land. Say it again?
What kind of tenant? Just terminals, that's it?
Just the term, to call it a terminal would be a stretch. If terminal translates into restrooms and a table, then we have a terminal,
That's it.
and that's it. Yes.
And Director Weldon, I just wanted to add, we've done repairs to the runway within the last 40 years. So in 08, 09, it was resurfaced, and then in FY '23, we did some crack seal repair as well. So those have been kept up to date. Yes, sir.
So David, I had one last question, and Director Weldon, I was right there with you, and David clarified regarding the contracts, the leases. But if we already know that it's gonna take some time for TxDOT, I mean, is that rate realistic for us to be managing for 2, 3, 4 years before we get a contract from TxDOT? I mean, are we just filling in the gap and it's a losing proposition until
No.
maybe one day we get that?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. This rate makes us profitable, and as projects come in, if they're higher than what our cost estimates are, we'll go up on the rate to pay for them, even without the fuel. And that's why the assignment was to look at this without fuel and to look at this without the tie downs. With what we have on the ground today, how can we make this more profitable? And that was the homework assignment. So if the projects come in higher, then we'll adjust the contracts to pay for the projects.
And what's your time frame for getting contracts signed?
Between now and Christmas time is what we hope. Pretty short term here. Our legal staff has been working on those contracts. But we didn't want to get too far ahead in case the board said, no, you're a water agency, don't spend any more time with an airport.
Director Lloyd?
David, that last thing you said is what I was about to ask about. We started this property management committee to evaluate properties to decide whether they were consistent with the mission of a river authority. And I feel like over the years since then, the airport was always kind of talked about as something not within that mission, and something that I feel like we were headed toward getting, divesting. And then we had difficulty figuring out who would take over and how, felt some responsibility to make sure it was handed off right. And now we're back to the point of, we're doing this, we're trying to break even, and Kenny's talking about making a profit, which, is I can agree with any of that. But how do we go from, we were skeptical of whether or not we needed an airport, if that's the right word, I don't know.
That's a really good question. And we were never skeptical that we needed an airport. We were skeptical whether we had the time and ability to remain in the airport business. And our commitment early on to the locals and the pilots that use it, and when we go to PKLA meetings, I do too talk to a lot of pilots from Midland and Lubbock that use the airport. And our commitment all along was to try to keep the airport open, but to try to find somebody else that could do it. And when we talked to the county and that failed, and we talked to kind of a more of a P3 scenario and that failed, and we talked to the Forest Service and they were kind of interested, but only if it was just a Forest Service airport and they didn't allow any private use, public use, then we found ourselves in the situation of, okay, is the airport important enough to have, from all the reasons that you heard, to try to keep it open if we can make it profitable and work for us, and it doesn't become a burden and a drag on the organization? And we think we're at a place that we can recommend that, and we're comfortable doing so.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly.
Thank you.
I won't take but a second, but I feel like I need to respond to Director Lloyd's statement there. I'm probably the one that initiated the discussion when I was in Director LaChance's chair. And it is true that we have been through lots of discussion about different properties having to do with the BRA and under the BRA ownership. This airport, in my opinion, is just like the roadways that we went through in and around Possum Kingdom. And I don't know whether we remember or not, but just briefly, we went through a huge discussion because the BRA used to maintain those roadways. And back before I became a member of this board, I was involved in the discussions that we had with Palo Pinto County in the transition into their maintenance of those roadways. And I put the airport in kind of the same position. And it is true what Mr. Collinsworth just went through. We have explored, in my opinion, every potential operator that might possibly come forward for the airport in an effort to divest of ownership. But I think it is critical from the BRA standpoint that we maintain public access to the airport just as much as it is for roadways or anything else coming into Possum Kingdom. So from that standpoint, I think it's critical that we continue with the airport. And on the other hand, I think it's absolutely critical that the airport not be any kind of a financial drag on the BRA. And for that reason, hats off to Mr. Collinsworth and his team for having brought it to the point that it is at least at a break even for us. So I think the airport henceforth will be self-supporting. And that's really all I've got to say. But I think there has been adequate exploration of alternative ideas, alternative ways of divesting it. And I don't see any other possibility other than the direction we're going.
So maybe to take us to the next step of the resolution, I think that, I think you bring up a good point, Wes, and thanks for the answers on that and the clarification. I do think that we're at the fork in the road that we need to make a decision. We're spending a lot of time, effort, resources. Which way do we really feel is best for the BRA? I think there are some still open questions, specifically, it sounds like around time frame. I'm not clear that, you're saying that we should have some contracts in place by the end of the year. We expect some time that it's going to take to get the grant money and what that looks like. Maybe we should keep this as a topic, maybe an update of where we are and what we're looking at, because I think some important questions were brought up today on not just the fork of the road of we're going to move forward with this, but what do we really want this to look like? And how far are we willing to go in terms of resources? I appreciate the staff and the work that, it sounds like it was a good cross-functional. A lot of you were spending some time in looking to make sure. So thank you for that. Great discussion here with the board and appreciate that as well. Before we read the resolution, is there any additional comments, questions before we get to this point and move forward? Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I think they have a very good plan here, and I think going forward, we can actually make a profit from this airport. And I think the airport's very important. And if we have to maintain it and operate it ourselves, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, and I think that I concur that I hope you feel that support from the board, because I hear that, right? I hear a lot of positive things. Due diligence is just further support to make sure we're making the right decisions as a collective group. So great conversation and points.
I want to second what Director Huber. We've had a lot of conversation about the airport. Should we have an airport? Should we not have an airport? I really do think the staff has done a really good job with weeding through applications and talking to people and trying to make it work. And our direction of saying, yes, we're keeping an airport, I think is the right direction. My biggest concern is, and y'all answered it with the contracts not being tied down to 72 cents. My biggest concern is that we're counting on government money. 90% of the cost and is 72 cents, $2,400 a year from how many hangars? 11. Is that really going to cover the cost, and what's our contingency to make sure that that happens? But as far as should we keep the airport, not keep the airport? I think we've beat the horse long enough. I think the direction for, yes, the airport is just a matter of the financial piece.
Director Weldon.
Just one quick procedural question. Is there the need for the committee or the board to approve the pursuit of the grant, or is that a future step?
It would be a future step, because we would have to come to the board to get approval to accept the money.
Okay. But you can proceed with seeking a grant without us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The best way to do, what I think is we need to get that money, or we can go to Washington, the money which we got it. We need to hire an airport manager, a person in charge of that facility. You know, Brasso's employees is hard to go and manage every day. We need to have a person dedicated to that job, so he can bring all these, amenities together, including the fuel supplies. Maybe that's what we want to, flight school is another income producing good thing. And also we can build more hangar if they want to. We can make this into a very positive cash flow business. So we should, my suggestion is, we should continue to keep up with our airport and keep it going. It's always Texas need more airport. Don't lose it.
Thank you.
Quick, I promise. To the extent I was ineloquent, I'm not saying we shouldn't have an airport. I'm talking
Right.
about the history of I'm
Right.
just observing the history of what I saw, and so that was my,
Good.
as
to
much
recap.
for the record as anything to fill in the gap between the last conversation we had and this one. I'm on board with the whole idea.
Randall, will you please read the resolution?
Yes, ma'am. Be it hereby resolved that the Property Management Committee recommends to the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority adoption of the following proposed resolution at its July 28, 2025 meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to enter into a new airport hangar lease agreements at Possum Kingdom Lake, subject to terms and conditions that are in the best interests of the Brazos River Authority. Be it further resolved that the new airport hangar lease agreements shall be for a maximum term of 10 years with an option for a 10-year extension, and shall have an initial annual lease rate of 72 cents per square foot, subject to annual adjustments by the Board of Directors.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt?
I move.
Second.
I have a motion by Director Lattimore and a second by Director Huber. Please pull up the committee.
Chairwoman LaChance,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Warren,
Yes.
Director Weldon,
Yes.
Director Wilson,
Yes.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Roy.
Yes.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion to
Yes.
adjourn.
Just one second. Did you get to vote?
Did-
Director Weldon, did you get to vote?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear his name.
Yes.
you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry. No.
Yes.
I don't,
Aye.
I just didn't
So
hear
I
your
have
name
a
called.
motion
I
to
don't care.
adjourn by
Yeah.
Wilson and
heard
then
it.
Weldon. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Our meeting is adjourned at 10:23. Thank you for your
questions, we won't get you to vote.
participation.
Good job.
Good job there, Tracy.